you don't have to rush the process. We don't have to rush the development of the kid. I mean, and I say kid like me when I was 17, right? I'm saying some guys out there, they take a little longer. Some guys out there, they need to be more patient for their training. Some they just need more repetition, or some just need the right feedback.
Welcome to the World Gymnastics Coaches podcast. We are pleased to introduce Felipe, a talented Chilean gymnastics coach, trained in Melbourne, Australia, and now working as a professional strength and conditioning coach in Canada. His passion and expertise are helping Prince Edward Island athletes reach their full potential. Stay tuned for an inspiring conversation with interviewer Emilio from the Escuela del Sur Welcome Gymnastics community.
Welcome to World Gymnastic Coaches. We are here with a special one coach from Chile, Santiago de Chile, traveling around the world and now already in Canada. Felipe, welcome, Coach Felipe.
Hello, how are you? Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to having you here. First, because this is the reason why Escuela del Sur born for coaches like you. So for me, first, it's an honor to have this opportunity to talk to you, and you can share with us all your experience and background in gymnastics.
Thank you. The honor is all mine. So appreciate it.
Perfect. So for all the audience in the podcast, please go ahead and explain who you are.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Felipe Hernández. I am 32 years old and I am from Chile. I started gymnastics when I was around 9 years old in Quilpué. I've been traveling and gaining new experiences now just to try to help other people push beyond their limits in sort of movements or gymnastics in general. And in terms of qualifications, I am a C2 men's gymnastics coach in Canada. I am a national level judge here in Canada. I'm a kinesiologist and I'm a certified strength and conditioning specialist.
Perfect. So you have experience in 3 different cultures, if you can mention that, because you was in different places of the world.
Yes. If I go a little bit in my background for gymnastics, I started training gymnastics in Chile, like I said, in Viña del Mar when I was 9. When I first began in the gym, I was the only boy in the gym. We had to go in there twice actually to try to get in the program, which was a bit of a struggle. But then gradually the gym adapted to more male disciplines and like more male gymnasts came along the way, which is really good. More equipment and some extra attention to men's gymnastics program was done, which is really good. At 17, I moved to Australia. I moved to train at the High Performance Center, which we can go and talk a little bit more after this. In Melbourne, where I trained for about 7 years, I competed nationally and I began my career over there with my mentors being Greg Corsilia and Shahar Tal as well. I started doing some coaching in recreational levels first until I got to a national level. During 2016 nationals, I was competing on vault and I ended up fracturing my foot, fracturing my talus and my calcaneus. So that was devastating, but from then on, the best option was to return to Chile and continue with my rehab. After the rehab was done, later I traveled to Canada, where I earned a degree in kinesiology and my certification of strength and conditioning specialist, which is CSCS. Over here, I worked in various clubs in Prince Edward Island, achieving significant results like getting gymnasts to attend the nationals for the first time, and then consistently throughout the years, athletes qualifying for apparatus finals and nationals and Canada Games, and organizing my first training camp over here as well with clubs from multiple provinces and traveling to gymnastics clinics as well to continue my learning. And right now, I am focusing a little bit more on the personal trainer side, focusing more on program designing, learning from other sports as well, and trying to experiment with different types of learning or different types of development and programming, so I can put them into my own programs and help around.
In a short life, you do a lot.
A lot of travel, a lot of cultural shock, I guess, if you can think about it. A lot of different experiences that we know from Chile, like as we are we kind of think that everybody's going to be a little bit the same, but.
So about this difference between a gymnastic culture, how was your thought about being in the South American system and later arrive in other system with other coaches, other knowledge, other way to look gymnastic? How was this impact in your life?
If I can give a little bit of context, where I was in Chile, like where I started in a club. And from that club, that allowed me to travel to Brazil, to Uruguay, and go compete in Argentina as well. I moved from a club to a high performance center, which is the best place in the province or region or wherever they are. So that was the first shock to see, first of all, just guys, just males. There was like 40 dudes there just doing flips and tricks everywhere. And I was like, wow, this is what I was looking for. Um, but yeah, apart from the English, like the English was a little bit complicated at the beginning because they speak English like we speak Spanish in Chile. So like you've been to Spain, to Argentina, and they speak very good Spanish, and we speak Spanish like we miss the S's, we miss the D's and all that stuff. So over here was the same. So I couldn't really understand until I got the lingo. And then after that, they just took me in like their family. It was amazing. It was just like the Chilean culture in a way of family and putting you there and trying to help you grow and trying to help you go through your fears and go through everything. So for me, it was the greatest experience in gymnastics. So at least in my career, it was really good to be able to train with lions, let's say, like I always say that I was training with the best over there, guys that went to the Olympics, guys that went to Commonwealth, world champs. Like it was amazing. It was an amazing opportunity. Yeah.
What about your mentors?
My mentors, the one in Spanish, the podcast in Spanish that we did, I don't think I did enough justice for my mentor. So I got a little bit of information, so I can talk a little bit about Greg. Um First, as a story on how I met this guy, was that when I first got there, I had to send a video so they can see my technique, so they can see my level, and then see if they can actually allow me to coach over there. Because in that gym, they do tests around the province or around Melbourne, let's say. There are other clubs go and try to, let's say, compete for a spot in the high performance program. And that's kind of how it works. So I had to do the same thing, but internationally. And once he said yes, he let me train for about a week. And he was like, I just want to see what you do. You let me know if you need any spot, any help or anything. I just want to see what your level is at. And after that, we had a big conversation and he told me that my gymnastics kind of sucked. Like my basics just sucked. And I was like, yeah, I kind of tell, I'm just forcing a lot of skills. And he was like, so we're going to work on that. We're going to work on the basics and so on. So he had me doing round-offs with a group of 10-year-olds for like 6 months, and I could do almost a triple twist on floor. I was like, what did I come here for? I traveled from the other side of the world to be here. So and eventually I would, sneak around and try to do another triple and it wouldn't work, and he would just look at me like, go back. And eventually I gave in and I said, okay, I'm going to keep on doing it. And once he saw that one time the roundoff was perfectly fine and he was shooting backwards, he saw the acceleration that he wanted. He looked at me and he goes, try a triple now. And I did it without even thinking about it because I was already pissed off about being with 10 years old. And boom, perfect. I was like, oh, it just clicked. And I was like, I'm going to go back to doing roundoffs. So I learned the importance of basics, of like true mastery of basics that will allow you to do whatever skill that you need, instead of really focusing on the bigger skill. That's the most, I don't know, celebrated thing and the whole connection, like roundoff back handspring double layout. Everybody looks at the double layout, not on how good the roundoff is. So if I can give a little bit of explanation for him, he studied in the University of Georgia in USA. He has a Bachelor of Business in Administration, major in marketing, and minor in psychology. He holds a brevet coaching credential as well. He was influenced by Lev Nemchuk, which was a professor in biomechanics in Russia, and also by Mas Wantambe and Hideo Misoguchi, which are both junior and senior technical directors of USA Gymnastics. So he said that he was influenced by one of the best coaches in Russia that really taught him biomechanics and actually supposed to move without looking at it on the emotional side of gymnastics, I guess. And the other guy was purely technique. The Japanese guys that were working over there in America were purely technique. So he said that he got the best of both worlds. He did 10 plus years in coaching elite athletes at the high performance program, produced 17 athletes in Australian national squad, 19 years of coaching elite athletes in USA Gymnastics, 4 years in NCAA, over 50 training camps at the US Olympic Training Center. Yeah, he's done he's done lots and lots and lots of stuff. So right now the program still stands and is still really good under the leadership of Dion Poffington. I think they're doing awesome over there and the program still runs. So
And what about your educational background? Because later you was an athlete, but later you say, I want to study something related to gymnastics. How you connect the dots and you take decision later to travel to Canada?
right. So when I was in Chile, it was just a discussion with my family, thinking that it was a time to start doing something different, you know, with gymnastics and with the experience that I have. And that's kind of how it came across. And the opportunity to go to Canada, we were just looking through different options. And Canada offered a 2 and 2, which is actually like a 2 and 3. So 2 years in college and then 3 years in university to actually get the 2 degrees. I mean, the diploma and the degree. And for me, it fit perfectly because when I left for Australia, I finished my high school and I didn't study for that time. I just trained and learned more about gymnastics in the body and whatnot, but didn't study. That means that I didn't write an essay or all that stuff. So it was really good to start from zero or from a bit of a having a slight base or easier base in order to go to university and be successful. So, but my own, how can I say this? My own curiosity on this program was about movement, was because I was constantly injured in gymnastics and I was never told like to back off and to do something else, and that was never understood in my brain. It was usually the work harder and that's it. And you have to work harder when others are sleeping, you're eating. I mean, you're training. You know, when others are eating, you're training, and everything was just like train, train, train. Until eventually you hit a wall, you get injured, and then you're forced to not train. So yeah, I wish I had a little bit more on that side. So I thought, well, maybe that could be me. And I started getting more into studies and knowing how to help other athletes that had similar pains that I had and heal them throughout their journey so they actually enjoy gymnastics so they don't have long lasting pains, you know.
This episode comes from Sur Studio, your go-to team for creating stunning portfolios and websites for professionals. Whether you're an athlete, sports professional, or club owner, Sur Studio creates sleek, modern websites that stand out and connect with your audience. From showcasing your career, your talent, selling your mentoring services, to telling your brand story, they more than deliver with a modern website and a great presence. Visit surstudio.framer.website and make your vision a reality. Remember surstudio.framer.website, your partner in professional web design.
So what about your coaching philosophy? Because with all this experience you had on the past, you built a way to do your gymnastics and provide gymnastics to your gymnasts now in the present.
Mm-hmm.
Explain us more about your coaching philosophy.
My coaching philosophy comes from, I think, from all the background. I mean, I feel like people that are 30, 40 that did gymnastics back in the day when they were 10 or so, we all know that, how can I say it in a nice way? There wasn't a lot of psychology back then. There was a lot more, you know, what it says in our coin and in the Chilean coin, by reason or by force, right? If you don't understand by reason, then force is coming your way and you're gonna have to understand. That's kind of how it was before. So my approach for philosophy is less about the athlete. So it's always that the person comes first and then the athlete follows. So this means that we try to understand the individual's strengths, their fears, their motivations, and their goals. that is beyond the actual performance, right? Beyond the sport, beyond gymnastics. For example, a coach may see a potential in an athlete, like we all do, and maybe the athlete doesn't want to do anything with it, and or he just wants to do another sport, right? He just wants to jump high in gymnastics so he can jump high in basketball. And from then on, our role is just to guide them as best as possible in their journey. Like we can't start putting ideas that we think that gymnastics is better or this and this and that into their kids' mind. I have learned that pushing an athlete without truly knowing who they are can do more harm than good as well. And I gave you this example in the Spanish one that you're more techie guy. For example, if the athlete's hardware, so that means that their mind and their sense of self, for example, isn't ready, their software, the performance in this matter, like won't be either. So it doesn't matter how good the program is, how good your feedback that you give into the kid. If the kid is not ready and the computer is not ready, cannot hold on information, then it won't start, right? Like you're developing software right now, and if you don't have the good platform for it, the software just doesn't run. So it doesn't matter how good you are as a coach if you haven't made, I think, that connection with the athlete, right? So to really understand who they are, because I think that true progress in that matter requires internal and external alignment beyond just the good training program. Each athlete, for example, has their own story. We gotta understand that too, like be kind with that too, and our coaches too, right? And our duty here is just to listen, to learn, to support them, again, beyond the skills that we're teaching. So for me, this philosophy has helped me a lot just to achieve lots of milestones and achieve lots of things with these kids, with the boys that I've coached, and also just deepen my understanding on what it is to actually lead and to teach as well.
Yes, you blow my mind when you say about the hardware and the software example, because this analogy is very clear about what can support, what you can put inside of the heart or their mind in their athletes.
Yes.
And sometimes we try to for the old environment, the system, the scholarships, the medals, try to understand, the gymnasts, they are athletes, they are machines, but we
Yes.
don't think about this. These people also have dreams, they have their own desires, they want to do different things, and the coaches, sometimes we make the mistake to say, you know what, we will go to Olympics, but you never figure out
Yeah.
if the parents and the kids want to be on the Olympics, so
Yes, exactly.
it's a huge question about you not only think about the wellness of the gymnast, also the wellness of the coach, because we have few months ago Angelo Savino from Flamengo, and he explained about the psychologist for coaches, because
Yeah, I
also
saw that.
we have a lot of struggling when we work. We are humans, we do mistakes, we are not perfect.
Yes. In
So
one of the presentations that I went in Australia, David Phillips was talking about that and saying how important it was for the whole environment to help the coach as well. Because sometimes, and nobody sees it, but sometimes the coach is the janitor, the coach is the guy who brings lunch sometimes, the programmer, the strength and conditioning guy, the guy who gets the leotards, the guy who preps everybody to travel. So you take on so many different hats that nobody knows, that the stress is sometimes unbearable for the amount of money that everybody gets in this profession. And so we all do it by heart, like we all know that every coach is out there loves it because we're not getting much out of this. So I think it's a really good point that Angela was putting that out there, just so everybody else has their own thoughts on how they can help themselves as coaches too, and have their own little mantras or their own little things on what to do when they're stressed.
yes, you cannot give what you don't have.
Your glass has to be full first.
Exactly. Let's move to the next question, Felipe. What about
Yes.
the technical things you learn in Australia and you build in Canada?
For in Chile, if I can start with that one, a good thing that I got from there was rhythm. I got taught rhythm. but out of just on floor, round back handsprings. That was usually the rhythm, the bam 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 land, bam bam bam. It always had to sound the same. If it was bam bam bam, you can see that the rhythm is different and something happened. So that stayed in my mind the whole time, and then I was retaught that when I was in Australia, showing videos and things like that. But rhythm on everything, rhythm on pommels, rhythm on PUR, swinging on everything. Okay, so when I got in Australia, with the rhythm also came up again, but it was a bit more. It just expanded a little bit more. It went on pommels, it went on rings, it went on giants, on everything else. What they did over there, I think that taught me a lot, was that they broke things down a lot. It wasn't just the focus on the biggest scale, it was the focus on how do you kick your leg on the round off, how do you put your hand down on the round off, where are you looking in the round off? You know, different things are made the skill much more complicated than what I thought it was, because some gymnasts, I guess like myself, they just feel things. You know, you twist and you go bah, and done. And other guys are looking exactly where they're going all the time, right? So it's just different ways of learning. I think personally, vision is better, looking is better instead of just being surprised all the time. But over there, I got taught that you don't have to rush the process. We don't have to rush the development of the kid. I mean, and I say kid like me when I was 17, right? I'm saying some guys out there, they take a little longer. Some guys out there, they need to be more patient for their training. Some they just need more repetition, or some just need the right feedback, you know, of like you're good enough, or that you're doing the right thing, whether it's positive or negative feedback, if you know the kid, to try to help him in that way. So for me, it was more the constant support that sure, I am old learning this stuff that should be basic already, but it is okay for me to relearn it, and it is okay for me to revisit in order for me to get better in the long term. You know, and that's kind of that an understanding that I couldn't comprehend at that point, because my ego was like, but I am this good, you know, I can do this and this and this. Maybe not the best technique, but I can do it. So going into that other side of learning the right technique, taking a step back and seeing it for what it is, I think it was really good. And that's what I took from them when I came over here, the excellence of doing certain skills and not being okay by just saying, okay, well, if you do a front handspring on vault that your arms are a little bent, it's okay. We can do a souk. That's so good. It's not, you know, that's the thing. If you're in a recreational program that all it is fun, then probably sure, flip and twist and land on your neck. And if that's fun, go at it, you know, like that's good. But over there, it wasn't. Over there was, this is not good. Therefore, they could see that one domino fell wrong. Therefore, all the ones ahead are going to fall wrong. So do we want to fix it now? Or do we want to get to a point that we're like, oh, we should have fixed that way before, and didn't happen, right? So I was trying to give the athletes that I coach over here an understanding and appreciation for basics and for the understanding of the fundamental patterns of gymnastics, right? And trying to teach a little bit of mechanics and a little bit of like what the muscles do to the body, what's going on, where the pain is coming from, or how do you apply force to certain things. Yeah, so really try to share a little bit more with the athletes, and not keep it all for myself. In my experience was, at least in Chile, was a little bit, there was a bit of a separation between you're the gymnast and I am the coach, and I know the program and I tell you what to do. Now it's kind of like, let's see what we can do together, and let's see what you can tell me about the program. Today you feel bad, then okay, we don't have to do two routines. We can just do one routine and da 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 da. Like have a fluid program into that as well. Like another thing, sorry, I'm ranting, but another thing is that in Australia they taught me that sure, you have to have a blueprint, you have to have your YTP and your program set in stone, but it can be flexible and can move around and then can just change and adapt as it goes by. Like if we have like I just explained, if we have a big heavy day or a heavy week, and let's say your athlete, something happened in the family, and then he has a test, and something happened with his dog, like nothing related with gymnastics, that athlete is going to train bad and is not going to be the same, because he's going to be sad. Stress is stress. It doesn't have to just come from gymnastics or sports or physical pains. it could be a mental thing. It could be that he just feels like it's not worthy today, and we have to work through that, work through the man behind the athlete. That's what I always say about the philosophy, because if you don't know who you're working with and you just see the athlete around him, your words are going to be meaningless every single time. I feel like you just have to know exactly who you're talking to. So whenever you say something, it penetrates that little shell that we all have, of like of who we are or who we're trying to present ourselves as, right? Get to the person and then find out who they really are so you can help.
Insightful knowledge about how to provide your experience to gymnasts in the best way, because sometimes the gymnast, you try to explain something and the reception of the message is 1%, 2%. But when you explain with all this package, the information and the technical things can be more listened. So
yeah, I mean, you have to understand, like what you just said, they can only understand what they know, right? And if we go by that point of view, we understand that other people can understand only as far as their consciousness goes, like only as far as they're actually willing to expand, like to have an open mind, then maybe they'll be willing. I'll give you a crazy example. If you see a shadow out there in the night and you see a spotlight just going and you believe in aliens, you're going to believe that thing is an alien. But if you don't, he's going to think it's a shadow with a speck of light from the moon. So like it's all how we want to interpret life, and how we want to give these explanations to the kids. Sometimes you tell the kids something like, let's say an RDL position, right? That the knees are not supposed to travel too far forward on the legs, I mean, from the toes. And you can say to the kid, try to have a really straight back, and you use your verbal cues, and it doesn't work. And then you go, okay. And there's another thing that they taught me, just to keep on trying different things. Another thing you can do, tactile cues. You can do poke, or you can put a stick here and they can hold it and they can feel it and they can do the skill. Another one. Let's say it doesn't work. And then you try visual. You go to the whiteboard and you go, look, it's meant to look like this. It's meant to move like that and blah, blah, blah. It just keep on trying different things. One time I taught an RDL by saying to a little kid, I need you to fart to the wall and don't fart to the ground, fart to the wall. And that means that he had to tilt his hips so he can be like that and not like this. So his hips are not internally rotated, they're posteriorly rotated, so he goes backwards. It's just however they get it. That's all.
what about this magic word for you, strength? How you look the strength, the importance of strength in the training, and more in men artistic gymnastics?
Strength for me is a pillar of gymnastics, just like flexibility is. So we all know that it's very important to be flexible to avoid injuries and all that. But slowly now, I think I've been seeing a bit more emphasis on strength and how that is greatly beneficial for gymnastics. I mean, they do it on every other sport, and if we're talking about weights. And now gymnastics is just getting a little bit of that attention. I think people are just a little scared to like get big and all this kind of stuff and get slow, and there's different mechanisms and there's different ways to do it. And you're not just gonna load 400 pounds on a 10-year-old kid for the first time, right? Like what I try to do in gymnastics, at least try to differentiate them into age, into their own stage as well, into how they move and how they perceive their movements too, whether they can. If I say arms up, I want to know that an athlete can put their arms up. That's it. Simple as that. So if they have their consciousness ready, they kind of know how to control this machine, awesome, we can move somewhere, right? But at the beginning, I think strength is, you try to camouflage their importance by doing games, and you say, or challenges, you say who can do more push-ups or who can run the vault the fastest, and I'm going to time you, and little things like that. They're a little bit more dynamic for the kids and they find they're fun. And at the same time, let's say if they're doing a squat and the squat pattern is wrong, their knees keep on caving in and things like that, then you put a little bit more attention. Maybe you make it more fun and you say, oh, I'm going to put this band across your knees. Don't let the band go in. or I'm gonna put a foam block here, and yeah, anything so they just find it a little bit more fun. After that, once the athletes can do a little bit more body weight and calisthenics things properly, like gymnastics, and then I try to introduce a little bit more on putting a bar on their back, like trying to load the spine slowly and teaching them proper biomechanics in that case, because it's not such like joltier motions like in gymnastics. It's a lot slower, it's a lot more controlled, and there's a lot more awareness, I think, on like the stability of your ankles, the mobility of your knees, the rotation of joints, that you need to keep at certain points. So I try to go slowly in depth into what we're doing. I don't bombard the athletes right away with information because I don't think anybody likes that. I give the bare minimum, the basics, so they can understand the program and what we're doing and why we're doing it. But then if they ask me what muscle is it supposed to be working in here, then I go in because I'm like, oh, you have an interest in biomechanics, you have an interest in biology and this and that. So I was like, cool, I'm gonna explain, right? And then I go a little bit more into it. But I don't want to bore the kids either with science and nerd stuff and yeah.
This episode is brought to you by FB Curves 3D Gym. FB Curves offers state-of-the-art 3D simulations to help coaches, judges, and gymnasts study the new code of points 2025 to 2028 and redefine gymnastics techniques. Explore the FB Curves, WAG, MAG, and trampoline apps with realistic tools to visualize your gymnastics. Find all the information at fbcurves.com. And from Freiburg, Germany, eGymnastics is a platform that provides digital tools to learn about training, e-learn gymnastics, and connect with the gymnastics community. Visit egymnastics.eu and discover the future of gymnastics.
If you can provide us an example from your kiddos, how you prepare your kids when you start to planning all the programs.
I try to do a YTP, or what it's called, like a yearly training plan, in which I divide it into seasonal patterns. So we do off season, pre-season, in season, and then post. It all depends on how many important competitions do you have and how many times we need a peak to get to that point, to get to that competition at the best possible performance or readiness in that case. For me, and what I was taught by Greg as well, what I was taught by Greg was that we start from the competition or from the biggest competition and we taper 1 week before, just to reduce the volume. And from there, we start working backwards all the way. So funny enough, this is the exact same way that they taught me on how to build a good routine. They taught me that, and maybe I'm giving their secret, but to do a good routine and to be able to hit a good routine, you need to start doing build backs of what they call it, build back routine. So they do dismount first, hit, and then they do 1 skill plus the dismount, then 2 skills plus the dismount, 3 skills, so on until the full routine is done. But the emphasis is the end. The emphasis is to always hit that dismount every time. Backwards engineering, yeah, exactly. So you want to try to work from the hardest point all the way back and then see any little tweaks that you have to do in and out. For me in the off season, I like to work a little bit more on building capacity. So like capacity to work. That means that we're trying to progressively increase the volume for these kids as they go through their training. If their off season, for example, is 10 weeks, I would either divide that into 2 blocks of 5, or I would divide it into 3 different blocks. Could be 3, 3, and then a 4 week or anything like that. To try to work through the same patterns of strength and conditioning. So here I also mentioned the same when we were in Sydney, that normal training for Uchimura was 3 weeks on and 1 week off, meaning 3 weeks of progressive overload, and that the load keeps on getting higher and higher, whether there's more turns or more sets or more time under tension, and that's the matter. And then 1 week down, 1 week of deload, that everything just goes a little bit less, right? Because he said that after, in that week, Uchimura used to get a little cranky. So he knew, because if he was cranky, then he was deload weak, and and he knew how to move on from there. Yeah, in the preseason, I try to work a little bit more on explosiveness and try to emphasize more on the strength and power. That's most of the things that I would do. And then if I want to give you an example, would be, for example, we can start with the front squats, let's say, and just try to build a little bit of speed and strength on those. And then if you want to make it a little faster, we move to like back squat and a quarter back squat, let's say, that you don't go all the way down. It's just mostly concentric force, so you don't get too sore either. And then we can go a little lighter into moving like box jumps or anything in that matter. So you're only using your body weight. And then once we go in the in season, and this is one of the mistakes that I did as well. Most coaches don't lift and don't do anything during the in season because they think we have so much stress on routines, on skills, and there's more going on in the brain, so we don't really need to push. Wrong. For me, right? I think you still need to lift. The volume needs to be way lower than what you were doing before. If you had a consistent plan, then the volume should work perfectly fine. But the volume needs to be reduced, and you still need to put that emphasis, just because the nervous system needs to have that interaction with that weight. You know, the body needs to know that it's not over yet. You're still lifting super high weights in a faster manner, or just in an easier way, right? But the nervous system, the system needs to know that you're still putting that demand on the body, I think. And then in the postseason, relax. Do something else, stretch at home. Don't ask me to come to the gym. Go somewhere else, play tennis, go swim, do other sport. Yeah.
Great. Interesting. How is the recipe from an expert with boys? Because it's totally different in other cultures, in other coaches, in other gymnasts. Everyone cook in different way.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you can connect this experience you share about how you work with your programs with your gymnast, tell me more about what you explained me in off the record about this chart and the surveys you prepare to your gymnasts when they doing the warm up and the flexibility stuff.
I explained how I do the YTP and why I do certain things and so on. But when I first started working over here, and I worked in a gym for 3 years, I realized that I didn't know anything about the kids. It wasn't like in Australia that I had a bit of a history behind the gymnasts that I coached, that I could see them training and developing. I didn't know anything. So I had to come up with different sort of testing in order to create a rational and objective point of view for everybody. So it's not just like, oh, he's kind of good because this, that. I try to make it super simple. So we just looked at numbers and data, and that was the tick to go to the next level. So I did skills test every year for the first couple of years, and then I stopped because the basics got a lot better. I did mobility testing every year too, just to know how they move across the year and whether or not they got tight throughout the year, whether my program was working too. And I did strength training tracking throughout the seasons too, to see how it was going to maneuver the volume properly in order to do more routines and facilitate performance for competitions and things like that. After those three, which is what you would think that is a normal one, so how to move, flexibility, how fast you move with muscles, and the other one will be the skills test, and how can you put all of those into something else. I started going more into the readiness of the person, the readiness of the athlete. So sometimes we were set to do a hard routine or set to do a hard day, and I couldn't understand why the athlete sometimes was sad, or the athlete was stressed, or the athlete was low energy, or sometimes super high energy. So I came up with the readiness chart, or like a readiness profile, let's say, that is super simple. It goes from 0 to 10 on every topic, and we track sleep quality now too, and sleep hours, stress, soreness levels, energy levels, emotional levels, and I think that's it. It was sleep, soreness, stress, emotional, and energy. Yeah, and then it gives you a random number, like a percentage, and then it shows you in a big chart how your sleep is. That's the one that I track the most because that's the one that's mostly influential with their performance. And then from then, we started seeing that some kids were not having breakfast properly, so they would write their breakfast on the side and their food. And I realized that some of them were just eating terrible. So they didn't have the energy because they were not educated on like how they eat. So helping a little bit on that sense, just to give some easy guidelines was really good. And to see the progress that they would see their track of sleep and be like, wow, my sleep has been terrible, so I'm going to put more emphasis on the sleep. And then eventually I would see how the numbers keep on getting better. So for this one, because it was tough for me to go every single time and ask them, I was like, hey, how you feel? How you feel? How you feel? Um, I created this on the Excel, sorry, on a Google Drive. So because I saw that everybody had a phone at that point, I asked my bosses and they thought it was good. I went back to the gymnast and I said, how about let's just all share this document. And whenever you walk into the gym, you're gonna open your phone, put your readiness down. So then when I go and stretch with you and we talk about it, I can see whether or not the athlete's been tired. I can see whether or not he's stressed. So the conversation becomes a bit um more secluded, more in the person itself, and not just, oh, I care about the athlete. So my athletes started to really like it, the fact that I was asking more about the person and not so much how are your ribs, how's your muscles, this, that. It's more like, how's school? Is it going good? Like, are you still stressed about that test? Did you do good on that test? Things like that. So I think that was really good. And if I can say something completely different along the sides of learning too, the opportunity that we had to go to Australia and to go to the Sydney Gymnastics Clinic was really good. We went there with one athlete, and we learned from lots of different coaches over there. And the most highlighted one was Hiroaki Sato, Mr. Sato, and King Kohei. We saw him train and we saw him show most of the events pretty much. The events that he focused on was high bar, floor, and pommels, which I'm going to be presenting soon on the YouTube channel. So for people to stay tuned. But yeah, it was great. I thought it was really, really good. Lots of insights, lots of new things to think about. More so in the terms of culture for me, with the coach's name is David Phillips. He was talking about how to build a performance culture. I think it was super insightful what he was talking about, how to know yourself, the athlete, the environment, and everything else. I think is really good. And from Hiro as well, we learned his story, his background, how he got to be where he was, and then to see Uchimura, a part that it was, very impressive to see the best of the best doing such things with ease. I wish I could have seen a little bit more of, I guess, falls, if that's what I want to say. Um, just because uh, as coaches, we work on how to fix things, right? On how to teach things so they can get it. And when we went there, we saw the finished product, which looks amazing, but it doesn't help you much to know how to do that product or how to create that product, if that makes sense. For example, if I'm teaching you how to cook and I just give you a full cooked pasta and you go, okay, well, how do I make it? I'm like, no, just eat it. It doesn't work for you to make it next time, right? So apart from the insights that we got, I think it was really good. He showed lots of techniques and lots of different things that we can think about as coaches. So it was great. If I can say a funny story though, from the course, was that the chalk at one point over there wasn't the best, and all the gymnasts kind of felt it. It felt like flour, and it just kind of slipped right through your hands. You put a little bit, and it's gone. I feel like every athlete will go ooh once they hear that. So Uchimura, not different than any other athlete, got on the bar, chalked up, did his tap for Kovacs, and then he just yelled, like, eh. And then he did it again, and did the same sound, ah, and then he came off. And then he was talking Japanese with Hiro, and he was going this and that, pointing at the chalk, pointing at his scripts, pointing at the bar. was kind of obvious to just going like, well, the chalk is not very nice for me to do my release. And for me, it was the greatest thing because we saw an actual coach coaching. Like, yeah, there's no signs or nothing behind it. It was just pure coaching. The guy looked at him, Hiro looked at Kohei, he was like, give me grips. And Kohei was like, sure, puts his grips off, gives him. Hiro puts his grips on, puts the chalk, looks at it like, sure, it's bad, but puts it on. Gets in the bar, joins, blind chain, turn, do a little bit of a tap, and then it does full tap for dismount, double A full, lands, looks at him, takes his grips off, chucks it out and be like, what are you saying? In Japanese, he said something like, rah, rah, rah. I was like, yes, yes. It was just great to see the real coaching, like, hey, stop giving me this stuff and just get on the bar and do your thing. Like it was great just to see that he's also a person. It's not a machine. You can see that the connection was a lot deeper than any other ones because they're just like two friends, they have that respect that you can see that they're friends and they can talk a little bit more like that and it's all good. So no, it's great to see.
What about this connection you make in Australia with the other coaches? Because just not first, I want to know how was this because you ran faster with this about Australia. How was this? Because you were in Melbourne, and later no one know King Kohei will be there at the gym, and was a surprise for you.
Yeah, so it came up an idea when we were here. Because we knew that another team was going to Australia. So we just tried to go with them. We did, and this was in Sydney. We tried to go to Melbourne to the gym that I was at before, but we couldn't. But to try to go, I guess, a little bit slower into it, we got there and we went to the AIS first. So we trained over there for a couple of days in the Australian Institute of Sport, which was a really great introduction for me to show the athlete that I was with how other people see gymnastics, like in the gym that he was at, he's the best. And once we got here, he was not, which was great because he saw other guys just saying, for example, Mitchell Morgans, he just jumped on the bar. He was like, all right, boys, it's basics today. And he chucked the casino, chucked the double straight, and then he did another 2 turns and he was like, all right, high bar done. My athletes looked at him like, what? They didn't do any half turns to warm up. And, and I was like, no, that is the warm up. So that was really good. We started from there. We had a really good time to see how Olympians train, how world champions train and all the recovery that goes behind it and everything too. And then after that, we went to Sydney, and we went to this gymnastics clinic that it wasn't only David Phillips and Hero, it was a lot of all the coaches there too, teaching WAG, MAG, trampoline, acro, there were all the different gym sports. So in this went for a couple of days too. I think it was 2-3 days that went by. And I think it was great. We had an opportunity to just learn from the coaches. And we went to presentations that they did, and they had a presenter. I mean, they had a someone who gave the examples like Hiro and Kohei. And then we had another day that we could train with them. So like there would be, for example, Hiro would be on high bar and he said, today we're going to focus on taps. So we would do taps and whatnot and move on all to the other events. And sometimes you don't get Hiro for everything. Hiro is just in some events. And then other coaches that are experts, let's say on tumbling, they were on the floor, experts on rings, they're on rings. And yeah.
So what we will do now is send greetings to Coach Hiroaki Sato from this podcast.
Yeah, thanks.
We will send greetings to him because he is doing a great job with the FIG Education Committee to develop the programs for all the coaches around the world. Mm-hmm. He was now a few weeks ago in Freiburg in the Congress in Freiburg-Returnen with Flavio.
Right.
He traveled from Tokyo to Freiburg and later back to Tokyo for FIG Academy.
Now he's going back to Australia so he can do it again, another gym clinic.
Yeah, so we send our warm greetings to Hiro for what he's doing because it's not only a successful coach, also is a great person, a lot of coaches want to meet to learn from him, and he shared all his experience now with so many people around the world. This is
Yeah,
very
it's great. It's great that he's actually helping other coaches become a little bit more educated too, and not so much in the terms that we learn in school or in books, more on like what he's teaching, the athlete-centered piece as well. That it's the person first, is to learn that first. It all goes back to that in the end.
So now for all the audience, I make a promise to myself. I will do one, two, three. Three times I touch the wood. I really love to travel to Japan one day in Tokyo to learn this gymnastic philosophy from Japan with the technique, because it's something very exquisite to see how they look the sport and how they properly work with their athletes. It's something I really want to see with my eyes. Yes, it's different compared to the Occidental method.
I talked to a coach in Australia. His name is Coach Pat Redrick, and he's been to Japan before by himself, and now he's going again with his athletes. But he's explained that even when the athletes go to the gym, the culture to see the gym is different. So, for example, and this is weird for us to understand, that kids will line up in front of the event and will thank the event and bow to the event before they commence. They do their stuff, and whenever they talk to the gymnast, they talk to the coaches, they're allowed to go like, hi, and to say yes, to be very respectful with the coach. And then when they finish, they clean up and they bow again, and they're like, thank you for letting me compete. And we see this in gymnasts and Japanese gymnasts whenever they're going to competitions, and they lift their hand and they go and they say, thank you so much for letting me compete. Right? It's just it's an honor for them. It's a cultural thing. It's just, I think it's great. But if you try to put that in the Western side, if you try to put that here, it'd be a joke, right? Kids would be like, I don't have to say thanks to these metal bars, right? Because they don't have the same mentality. They weren't raised the same way. So it's very hard to, I think, to translate that into this side. Yeah.
Yes, it's something travel with their mentality from long time ago, I think, because it's something cultural. It's something very cultural. And also, I will say this in the podcast because I'm trying to catch Coach Hiroaki in our podcast. So I will invite in a professional way, please, Coach Hiroaki, hear our
listening out there
praise and try to be in our podcast. We know you are very busy with your schedule, but will be a pleasure if you can also share this conversation like what we have now with Felipe, because it's a lot we can share, we can understand, we can talk about this incredible sport. So the invitation is sent already now. Felipe, please, now we start to enter in the end of this conversation, but before finish this conversation, I want to know more about our project together. Was this website, because it was 2 months of very nice work. And in the very easily way, I want to know more about how was your experience working with Escuela del Sur in your brand, because you developed your website with me. Was a really pleasure, but I want to know more in this podcast. What was your experience with this?
It was really cool how we kind of met. I was thinking, like, what am I gonna do to like project myself out there, to put myself out there, and start thinking of videos and whatnot. And then your website just popped up in the story. I think I was scrolling through Instagram, and I was like, oh, this website looks sick. And then I look in and I look at all your work, and I was like, oh, they're all gymnasts. I was like, what the hell? And then I kept on going through, and I was like, is this real? Like, is this happening? So from then on, it was really good. And for you, if I was talking to anybody else, not throwing you flowers, but I think the work was great. The work was really, really good. I felt at peace most of the time. It was like there's some little struggles here and there, but I felt at peace in the sense that I can work on my things and then I can just provide them to you, and you would do everything necessary to fix them, put them in place, and make it look nice. And everything that I asked you, you did, and you changed. So in the end, I think the webpage looks amazing. Please let me know if you're watching. Go www.coachfelipe.com. But it was really good that I have now all my social medias there. So you can check the YouTube, you can check LinkedIn, you can check Instagram, TikTok, or send me a message on WhatsApp as well if you have any questions on programming or anything like that. I think Amelia did a fantastic job putting all the programs there and all the reviews as well. If somebody's watching this one, thank you so much for all the reviews. Everybody who gave me a review. There's like 30 people over there that wrote a review, so I am super thankful. Thank you so much. And yeah, it's only up from here. So hopefully people will start checking it out and talking to me a little bit more, and we'll see how it goes. But thank you.
No, for me, it's a pleasure to say this in my platform because I never say this to myself. But also, it's good to always say when you do something good, recognize to yourself.
Of course, nice
It's a,
pat in the back. Yes.
it's a piece of art, the website. Please, I invite you to see this content from Felipe because we build with so many hours of work because we need to discuss the language, we need to discuss not just only the brand, not just only the logo, not just only the font, also the way how provide information. And Felipe, when you arrived to me, you asked me, you know what, I don't want just be a coach. I want to do strength conditioning programs. I want to explain what I'm doing in videos. And I try to make with my software skills to make integrations to make everything more smooth. And every time when I show in my portfolio, this website for me is the best one. You know, it's difficult to beat this website because also my website is not good enough like yours. So yes, I really wanted to record this because it's a pleasure to have this project done with you, Felipe. It was very nice to work
Pleasure's all
with
mine.
you.
It was awesome. It was really good. Yeah.
Great. And now we want to make some advices to the coaches, to the gymnastic community, also the athletes. For me, it's very valuable to people now hearing our podcast in the out in the car, driving or cycling or running or wherever they're doing cooking, and you use this time also for learn, but for bring some great ideas. First, I wanna say, what advices can you give to the young athletes they training already now and they hear you?
For the athletes, for the young dogs. Um, for the athletes, whether they are young or they're old, with or without experience, my suggestion would be to persevere and to be yourself, no matter what. Gymnastics is a very demanding sport, and there will be days that we do not feel like it. We all know that we have an ankle that is sore, or muscles that are aching, or ribs that are open, but we got to try to fight to keep on going, right? So we got to know that in every struggle lies an opportunity to grow. So don't let the opinions or judgments of others steer you off that course that you want. Be unapologetically yourself. Be authentic. Whether gymnastics becomes your lifelong career or it becomes just a cherished memory, be you no matter what. Find joy in the journey and the friends that you make, and even in the struggles as well, because they're all part of the story. If I can give some personal advice, I guess would be this sport is a little bit too hard for you not to give it your all, whether you're playing or whether you're going for a competition. And at the same time, life is a little bit too short to worry about fitting anybody else's expectations as well. So for me, moving countries, chasing dreams, and pushing through adversity has been my journey, and I wouldn't change anything about it. So in summary, go out there, be bold, be yourself, and know that every step that you take, every step back, every victory brings you closer to the person that you're meant to be. So embrace the journey with all the highs and lows because it is your story and nobody else can live it but you.
Be your main character.
Be the main character. That's it. Do some main character stuff. Run, lift those weights, do your stuff. Yeah.
Now for important people here this podcast because coaches, colleagues for me they are very important people because they
Yes.
trust their time to listen this and I'm very glad people trust in this project Escuela del Sur and they hear you Felipe to some advices you can provide to your colleagues coaches working in India, working in Australia, working in Buenos Aires and Rio, Canada. what advice that you can provide to them is very insightful, very important from you.
To go on a different side that Angelo went, because I know that he did a bit of the stress of the coaches. I think that's really important for you to know yourself. When is a bit too much? When you should take a break? When you should just lay and do nothing? That's also very good to know. But to go on another side, that some of the suggestions that I would give or advice, whether you're starting out or you're already experienced coach, I would say that it's always good to listen to your athletes. Very simple advice, but I think some of us get lost in the techniques and some of us get lost in the focus for the performance or the results or the medals. And we forget that the heart of gymnastics or the heart of coaching is connection. You know, like we just gave an example with Hiro talking with Uchimura as a joke, throwing the grips and be like, hey, get off. You know, and it's good because we see that internal connection that he knows exactly how to talk to him. So he can laugh, they can have some sort of conversation and mix, and then it's fine. To younger coaches, to take the time to truly understand yourself, because you're still going, and myself as well, you're still going through that path of self-discovery, and at the same time your athletes are going through it as well, so it's a double-edged sword over there. So really try to know yourself and work on that while you're helping other young gymnasts, and for those young gymnasts, just be kind to them. That's all. To those that are beside me, I would say stay grounded, be patient, be curious about who you are, the things that you really like as well, and what your athletes are like, who your athletes are beyond the sport, right? What we were saying before. And for the older coaches, for the guys that have more experience than me, I think they already know all the techniques possible. So I'm not going to say techniques, but they already know that it's really good to inspire others. We need to inspire through trust and respect, and not through just giving orders just because I'm that good. You know, for me, coaching is about like leaving a long-lasting impact, like a print, you know, that goes beyond any competition or medals or anything like that. So by prioritizing the person and not the athlete, we create this space that the athletes can feel valued, that they can grow, they feel safe, they can reach new levels of self-discovery. And also to remember that every coach faces challenges, like we were saying before. We all have stress in our lives, but just to remember that our job is not only about winning, even though that's what we focus on. It's not only about winning, it's about giving each athlete the tools necessary to succeed both in the gym and outside the gym.
Excellent. Excellent. It's very insightful. You know what I love to hear when now I listen to you is the authentic way you explain all these advices, not only for the youngest, also for the oldest ones. Because first, you must be very confident about it. I have the best example about this is Emrys Farland. Is my friend, my mentor, one of my head coach. He was the coach of the national team of MEG in South Africa. And always I have the possibility to talk to him, not in the respectful way, just in the way I can criticize positively his method, and he will hear to me and say, Emilio, you're right. Maybe I don't see this side of the conversation. Yeah. And this is what I love when I hear you, because the only way how we can build a better community, a better gymnastic community, is have the opportunity to talk and to hear everyone, because not everyone manage all the info, and I love to hear you say this about it.
Yeah, I think it's really important to be able to share in every way possible, whether it's a scientific one with high-level coaches or super technical with high-level coaches, and to explain the exact same thing to a 4-year-old. I think it really shows, if you can explain to both sides, it really shows that you know what you're talking about. And I may sound like I know what I'm talking about, but I know that everybody's making it up in this world as they go, with the most educated guess that they can find. And for me, it's just been experience. Apart from the studies and everything that I've done, I think it's mostly experience that has shown me what things to do. And sometimes that we get a bad mentor, let's say, or we call it a bad mentor, but maybe that mentor is not meant to just traumatize me. Maybe he's meant to teach me how not to be. You know, maybe he's teaching me something else that I need to, like you said, just be aware, be open, that maybe some bad things that are happening are not really bad and they're blessings in disguise, you know. We gotta look at everything differently and take it as it comes and not take it as we want it to, because life is not like that. And yeah, just try to support everybody because everybody's struggling, you know. We're all going through the same stuff, and life is tough. And sometimes it's easy, but I think most of the time it's a little tough. So we gotta try to help everybody, try to be kind with everybody.
I want to tell you thank you, Felipe, for your time, for this conversation. Visit our website, visit our podcast, and see you around in next time in the future, maybe presentially, Felipe.
Maybe. Yeah, thank you so much for having me in the podcast. Again, I really appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to World Gymnastics Coaches. Don't forget to follow us on all our platforms, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn like Escuela del Sur, and remember, you can find all our episodes at www.coachemilio.com. Thank you, gymnastics community. See you next time. Vamos arriba!